All right, guys, we are on the last lecture of the year here. I'll have a couple of announcements of how the end of this week will finish and then what your expectations are. I know there's only a few of you left being juniors, but we will finish this strong. So, we're going to get into this last bit. We're going to talk about some different things in regards to prejudice, discrimination, racism, the difference between these. And then the last thing we'll look at is how some different perspectives look at these and their effect then on our society. So I'm going to put a statement up there, and I want you to think as you see this. What picture comes in your head when you see this? People who wear glasses are, okay? I would say this one has changed a little bit in the sense of it used to be this whole idea, people wear glasses are smart. I think now glasses, some don't even have a prescription, but it's for a fashion statement. So this one changes a little bit. People that drive a loud truck, not loud because the muffler is bad, but purposely drive a loud truck. What do you visualize what they look like? People who live in the big city. People who like art are. People who like sports are. White people. People that are religious. Okay. And you think about the purpose of just thinking about those, we oftentimes predetermine, okay, when we see statements like that, we have this conception, sometimes misconception of what these individuals look like or who they are or how they think and act. Okay. And where do those ideas come from? And we're going to talk about what that is and then what that can possibly turn into depending on different situations. So let's start with prejudice. Okay. The root word of prejudice is to prejudge. All right. So these are widely held negative attitudes about a group. This can be minority or majority group and its individual members. These are usually overgeneralizations based on emotion, and they're hard to change because of emotion. So oftentimes, like young Asians will be prejudged. Okay, some prejudice would be that they are automatically good at math. Okay, and the example, one bad Asian math student isn't going to make a difference in terms of where this comes from. This is deep rooted. You'll see this in movies. You'll see this in shows. You'll see this in all over in different places. In circles, and people just automatically think that due to the fact that you are of Asian descent, that you are good at math. Okay, so this is that idea of some of those prejudices. All right, we could go over example of how we do this. Just think about when you see someone and you do not know them. Hopefully, you're not going to prejudge them. But for a lot of people, they see someone and then some type of thought comes into their head. Okay. And that's the idea of prejudice, that negative attitude due to why. All right. Some overgeneralization that they found somewhere else. Now, racism, okay, is an extreme measure of prejudice that assumes superiority of one group over another based off of what? Okay, based off of race. So prejudging and assuming superiority of one group over another, all right, is what becomes the idea of racism. And that second bullet there, believe exclusion is morally justified because of their own superiority. So this, whether it be whatever is happening within society, that this is justified because of the superiority. Now, discrimination is the act of. So if you go back to racism, All right. So extreme measure of prejudice, of those thoughts. Discrimination is the treating of, the act of treating someone different due to their ethnicity, race, religion, culture. All right. So whether it be avoiding social contact, all right, is we oftentimes define that, well, that's racist. Well, it is kind of, but to the true definition, it's discrimination because that's the actual treating of. Why are you doing this? You're discriminating based on their race, okay, or ethnicity, religion, culture. So avoiding social contact, denying positions in a workforce, right? Because of, and we know that this is illegal, not always easy to prove. We can assume oftentimes, okay, but when I say hard to prove in a court of law, maybe denying access to exclusive neighborhoods. All right, so we know this happened. I gave you guys the example a long time ago about redlining, where they draw the line of this is where we are. Think of like current areas where you have different housing projects where it was a red line that was drawn and said, this is where we would like all basically African American and other minority groups to live. And they redlined them out of white neighborhoods. That's discrimination. That's the act of discrimination. Also illegal. Now, this was done, but before it was in the books, and then now it's definitely illegal to do if it can be found that this is why you are denying someone access to that neighborhood. And then hate crimes. This is a criminal act motivated by extreme prejudice. So this is so discrimination could be illegal, might not be. To be characterized as a hate crime, it is a crime, obviously, motivated by that prejudice. So race, religion, sexual orientation, national origin, okay, all of those being a part of this. So to distinguish between prejudice and discrimination, so for example, prejudice and discrimination they're common throughout the whole world. In Mexico, all right, you have like Mexicans of Hispanic descent discriminate against Mexicans of Native American descent. All right. So within the Mexican culture, you have that there depending on where their descent came from. All right. You have in Israel, there are Jews of European descent, and there are Jews that are Middle Eastern descent. Okay. Where you're going to see discrimination. In China, the Han discriminate against, I can't remember how to say it. It's like Uyghurs. I know I mispronounced that, but based off of, okay, their ethnic background. And in some places, you guys know this, the elderly might discriminate against the young, and the young might discriminate against the elderly. And then all around the world, you have men who discriminate against women. Discrimination is an action. It's unfair treatment directed against someone. Okay, we talked about it. It can be based off age, sex, height, weight, skin color, clothing, speech, income, education, marital status, sexual orientation, whether they have a disease, a disability, all right, religion, politics. Discrimination is widespread. It's the act of, all right. So distinctly between the two, when the basis of discrimination is someone's perception of race, that is when it is known as racism. Okay. To add to this is when we go back to prejudice, I'm going to go back to this. And where do we learn prejudice from? Okay. We're not born with prejudice. All right. With most of our attitudes, we're not born with prejudice. Rather, we learn prejudice from the people around us. Okay. There was a study done in 2007 where an individual was interviewing a population in Nazi skinheads in Sweden. And he found that the young men were attracted mostly to the group by its tough masculinity. What first drew them to the group was the tough masculinity that they saw, not its hatred of immigrants. And then a woman by the name of Kathleen Blee, she did a study in 2005 and extended the study in 2011. She interviewed female members of the KKK in Aryan nations in the United States. She found something very similar. They were attracted to the hate group because someone they liked belonged to it. They learned to be racist after the fact. Okay? It wasn't the racism that drew them to it. You had one where it was the tough masculinity, you had the other where it was by, okay, who they associated with. So what's interesting here is when you think about this, just as our associations can increase prejudice, we would also think that they can also reduce prejudice. All right. So we think about this in the sense of a more blended community as an isolated community. All right. If you have a community that is 98% Caucasian, okay, what's the chances, all right, that they have distorted views, okay, of any other group outside of Caucasians? A heck of a lot higher. Okay. So when we get into where stereotypes, this is the last thing I want to look at. These are distorted, exaggerated, or oversimplified image applied to a category of people. Okay. So self-fulfilling prophecy is associated with this. It's the expectation that leads to behavior that causes the expectation to become reality. That's people's fear of stereotypes, is that stereotypes, people will oftentimes play into the stereotype, okay, in the self-fulfilling prophecy, because that's what they hear, that's what they see all the time, is that this is who I am, this is who I'm going to grow up to be, all right? And so that self-fulfilling prophecy happens. And obviously there could be positive, depending on what that prophecy is, or there could be negative, depending on that prophecy also, all right? So that is that is what we're going to talk about with stereotypes. I'm going to stop this here. I just want to introduce to you these definitions, because you're going to work with these definitions and these ideas with the assignment that is attached, okay? And then in closing, this is the last assignment that is paired with a lecture. You're going to have a quiz that'll post on Thursday. You have Thursday or Friday to take that quiz, okay? And that will be the official last assignment of the quarter, all right? So what you have to do in this next week, if you have anything missing, you need to work on that and have that in by the 4th of June. If that is not in by the 4th of June, that is cut off at 3 p.m., June 4th. All right. You cannot turn anything in after that. Okay. Because the grades are being submitted immediately after that, the following day. All right. So take care and enjoy the assignment that goes with this.